Hi guys, Bearded Rogue here for Vlogust the 4th. I can't believe it's the 4th day already. And today I'm going to talk about board games only a little bit. Over the weekend, while I was attending Gen Con, I found out that Rowdy Roddy Piper had passed away. Now, Rowdy Roddy Piper is probably one of the most well-known wrestlers that ever existed, and rightfully so. But to me, he was the reason wrestling clicked for me. I remember being a little kid and watching the WWF at the time, and Hulk Hogan was ruler of everything, and they just announced WrestleMania was going to be happening, and Rowdy Roddy Piper was the biggest villain of all time. Like, you could argue that there are some other people who were hated more, but like, when you look up heel in the dictionary, like, Rowdy Roddy Piper is it. Ric Flair, you could maybe make a case that he's the greatest heel of all time, but on my money is still on Piper, because he understood what it meant to be a heel. He hitting Jimmy Snuka over the head with a coconut, bringing out less-known wrestlers and interviewing them and basically demolishing them using just his words on Piper's Pit. The famous "you shouldn't throw rocks at a man wielding a machine gun" line. I mean, it just endless opportunities to get heat and bring anger towards himself. And he was the biggest villain of all time, and being the, little kid that I was, and not understanding at the time that wrestling was scripted. Wrestling is not fake, by the way. Anybody who thinks that wrestling is fake doesn't understand how wrestling works. Wrestling is as fake as ballet or gymnastics or being a stuntman. It's not fake. It is scripted. The results are known. The results are scripted, but it's entertainment like anything else. A movie is scripted, but that doesn't make it less awesome when a guy walks away from a building that's blowing up without turning back to look. And Rowdy Piper really was that. Like, he was that cool guy. He was such a bad guy that, like, his vignettes with Mr. T, who Mr. T at the time was like one of the most popular things in the country. I mean, the man had a breakfast cereal named after him. He was just everywhere. The A-Team was huge. He was B.A. Baracus, so he was the biggest thing on the A-Team. He was everywhere. And, Mr. T was a very good foil for Piper. Piper is somebody who, was a littler guy in wrestling terms. He was a littler guy who worked his ass off to get where he was. Like, all of his promos, all of his in-ring work, like, the man was a storyteller, and he worked his butt off to get where he was. And the fact that he was never a world heavyweight champion is an absolute crime, because that man deserved to be rewarded for everything he's given the business. He could put on some of the most brutal matches of all time. The dog collar match with Greg the Hammer Valentine is definitely one of the most brutal matches I have ever actually seen. It's right up there with The Undertaker and Mankind in Hell in a Cell. Like, it's unbelievable. And they managed to still tell a story during it all, because that's what Roddy was all about, was telling stories. So his work in the ring was exceptional. His work on the mic was exceptional. He was just a phenomenal dude. But going back to where the story started, as a little kid, I didn't understand that it was scripted, and Hulk Hogan was the hero, and Rowdy Piper was the villain, and, I was all for Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan this, and Hulk Hogan that, and everything was great, and, I was saying my prayers and eating my vitamins and doing all the things little Hulkamaniacs did back then. And, I didn't get at the time how valuable Piper was to that feud, because Hogan's okay on the mic. Hogan's passable in the ring. Now he's atrocious. Like, the man should never wrestle another match. He's way too hurt. And should, take the time to recover and stay out before he messes his back up to where he can't even walk. He's already almost there. He's, limps around all the time. But back in the day, he was passable in the ring. He could tell a story. He didn't have a lot of moves. He wasn't very technical, but he could tell a story in the ring, and that's what was important. and it's something that's somewhat lost today with the more technical maneuvers, is there's much more effort that goes into setting up these technical maneuvers and executing them without hurting anybody than there is telling a story. Regardless, I'm getting off track. Wrestling. So, I didn't get that Piper was playing a role. I thought he was just a genuinely bad guy. And was rooting for Hogan, and of course Hogan defeated him at every step of the way. Everything was going on, and then I saw, Piper stepped away from the business, and he made a movie called They Live. And if you have not seen the movie They Live, it is probably the best B movie you could ever watch. I highly recommend it to everyone. If you've never seen it, find it, watch it. It is great. It's a little bit ridiculous, but it's it kind of encapsulates everything that was great about hokey 80s B-movies, with all of the action and the one-liners and the plot and the, punk rock don't trust the man thing undercurrent running behind it all. It's a fantastic movie. But I saw that, and in that, Rowdy Roddy Piper is the hero. And he's, doing his thing, being the hero, and it suddenly, like, something clicked in my head. And so I went back, and this, I don't even remember what year this was, but I went back and rewatched all the old stuff, all the old promos, all the old matches, and really got to appreciate, like, holy crap, like, by the time I saw They Live, I was aware of the scripted nature of wrestling, but, like, going back and watching what Roddy contributed really showed how much of that was him. Like, he was a heel. He garnered the heat. He made you love the hero, even if the hero was less capable than him. He would say things deliberately to provoke people and get boos, and he loved getting booed. Like, a lot of the modern-day heroes are cheered. Stone Cold Steve Austin being the anti-hero kind of made it cool to root for the bad guy. I really wish it had been cool to root for the bad guy when Piper was around, because he really deserved it. Dean Ambrose, I see a lot of Piper in Dean Ambrose's interview style, and I think that's intentional. I think they're very similar characters as far as, you never know what they're going to do, and that makes for very entertaining TV. Piper was great, whether he was a heel or a face, whether he was in the ring or, just talking on a microphone. And I think the world is much poorer for him not being in it. I understand he's had a rough time of things in the last couple of years with a cancer diagnosis that he beat, and a few other things. So I hope he's at least at peace. But, Rowdy Roddy Piper and the Macho Man, and the Ultimate Warrior, and, like, these were my heroes growing up. Like, those were my superheroes, and the fact that none of them are with us anymore is kind of weird to me, because they just seemed immortal when they were on the screen. But wrestling, in case you hadn't figured out, is one of the things I'm passionate about, just like board games, and the story and the pageantry and everything else is something that I'm really into. If you want to try to understand it a little bit more, go ahead and find Wrestling Isn't Wrestling by Max Landis. You can watch it on YouTube. It's a great video that'll tell you a little bit about why people love wrestling, like help you to understand why wrestling matters to people and why it's such a big deal, and why I'm so hooked to it. I was wearing a Kevin Owens shirt at Gen Con. For all of my NXT fans out there, I've got to rep Kevin Owens because he's the best thing going right now, and again, an excellent heel, just like Rowdy Piper. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off there. The world's poor with Roddy Piper not in it. And wrestling is amazing. So I'll see you later, Internet, and we'll talk more about this later on this month, I'm sure. Bye.